You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again to commence our bi-weekly options extravaganza known as the Option Block, coming at you with part 2, the Thursday edition of what the cool kids call the old OB. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the aforementioned network upon which so many of you are binging these days, coming off the hottest month in the history of the network recently. So folks are coming at the content, which we love to see. If you're on the on-demand side, all we ask is that you continue to rate and review the show so that new folks, you could argue, I mean, we have 15 years of reviews. I get it, but you could argue that the new stuff is more important than ever. So new folks are discovering this content quite literally all the time. Each month is greater than the last. So leave a review wherever you get the content. It does help the new folks. And of course, if you want more in your ear holes, and clearly a lot of you do because you're coming at the content left, right, and center, then theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. Or for all you really cool kids out there, /secret club. But that last one, that's just between me and you. Don't tell anybody. Especially don't tell these other two crazy cats who are joining me on the program today. First, let's go out to the quiet, the tranquil hinterlands of Chicago, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the old OB, sir.
Tell me what? I want to know. Tell me. It's great to be here.
Well, Uncle Mike, all fired up. I like it. Let's see if his compatriot can match it. Probably not, because he's beaming in from the dark and stormy shores of Maine, where we are joined once again by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the old OB.
Well, it's good to be back. It's been a few days for me since I've been at the old OB. I think I have to say, but it's good to be back. And I have to say, it is dark and it is stormy in Maine right now.
See, I have willed it into existence. I'll just keep talking and I will just dictate your future henceforth, sir, including right now when we head right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, it begins. Let us commence our journey to the dark side with the old Trading Block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading. And it is mostly dark side on the screen today, mostly red, even though most of the major indices off the lows that they hit earlier in the session. We did see the S&P flirting with around the mid 4080s, I think 4087 or so, somewhere in that range and then it bounced off there. Coming into showtime, we're north of 4,100 now, off about 0.2% when we kicked off the show. Dow off about a little over 1/10%. NASDAQ off about 1/3%. So again, not the most rock'em sock'em robots of days. We've seen far greater sell-offs reverse and vice versa to the upside as well. So who knows where we will be even by the end of the show. That means we've got vol mostly kind of relaxing today. We've got VIX coming into showtime is at a 24.60. That puts it down pretty much exactly a point from where it was on Monday's show. VVIX getting a little bit frothier, back up to about a 95. That puts it up about 4 points from where it was on Monday's show. Still below that pivotal triple-digit mark. I think we have a little more to talk about that a little bit later. VXX 21.75 when we commenced operations here. That's down about 0.5 point from last show. UVXY 1290, back in a 12 handle, listeners, down 0.6 point from where it was this time on Monday. SVIX, so our inverse friend, 1190 when we kicked off. That's up about 1/3 point. UVIX 1490 when we began the show. That was down almost a full point, about 0.8 point from Monday's show. And Vol Q, the at-the-money vol of the NASDAQ, hanging out right around a 29.5. That's down about 0.5 point. So NASDAQ vol remains a little frothy, at least compared to the rest. Let's go around the horn. Since he's all fired up, let's start in the land of the Unklest of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW. Sir, what is lighting up your tape today?
Well, we've had a down market earlier in the day, but looks like we've had some buyers going into the show. Probably the people are excited about the sexiest man in options, whispering about the secret club. That
who doesn't get excited about that, sir? I ask you.
I don't know, but apparently you moved to the market with the anticipation of the sexy man whisper that you give on every show. So that must be it. So yeah, we have buyers coming in, and I think Andrew had even talked about a little bit earlier this week in terms of the numbers coming out tomorrow to see how there'll be an effect on inflation. And it seems like the market really has not had a ton of movement this week. I mean, we've had ups and down days, but we're really not that much different than we were at the beginning of the week as of right now anyway. We have a few sellers in the 10-year note, not really too much movement on the week, but it has gone down a little bit. Haven't had too much movement in the silver realm, so we do have that. VIX is still remaining stable at 24. In terms of the futures world, we do still have oil above the 120 level, so that's there. Natural gas has kind of come down a little bit from where it was, but it's still pretty darn high at the 880 level. And so it looks to me like the market is kind of in a wait and see mode until tomorrow. I figured we'd have a little bit more movement this week, but the market really wants to see that number tomorrow, apparently. And I think we can see some movement tomorrow, but I've been saying that all week. What do I know? So that's kind of what's lighting up my tape at this point.
What does he know indeed? Let's boot him off the show. Listen, what are we listening to this crazy guy for? I said, let's go out to the dark and stormy shores of Maine, where it doesn't matter what's going on in the market. It's always dark and stormy in his eyes. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what is lighting up your tape and the tape of Volman this week?
Well, actually, I was reading a retweet of, I think, one of our shows. Let's see here. I was about being, I don't know if it was a comment on my show or what we said on this show about, what is VIX doing and what is a more accurate way to describe how VIX moves and all that kind of stuff. And then always on Twitter, all the vol geeks come in and, they have to parse all the conversations that we make about, volatility and, what's mean reverting and mode reverting. And, so just in case anybody forgot, the mode for VIX, I believe, is the 12 handle, which was statistically mode is what? The biggest sample. So the biggest handle sample, I believe, for VIX is 12. But I think the median or the average is closer to 19 something. That was something Vance, some six-figure investing posted. So yeah, it has a tendency to slide down into the lower implied vols, because the realized vol, like the SPX, basically, can sit around at a 5, 7, 8%, realized vol for long periods of time. That is not what we have currently. Just like we said on Monday, The SPX, volatility is still pretty high, although not so much today. We had a little bit of a little, like Mike said, a little sell off, and then they kind of bought it back. When does that cycle end? And I think, to be quite honest, we're in an interesting make or break period for what we'll just call modern monetary theory, where we think we can kind of print our way out of problems or something like that. And, and I don't know how it's going to end up. I remember trading for years and nobody cared what the Fed did, right? Because the Fed's job is pretty simple. They started to broker, I think the most active thing the Fed did, or I guess the U.S. government did that I can remember, started with the peso crisis in the early 90s. I know that's kind of dates some people. And then ever since then, and then they stepped in and tried to get people to buy long-term capitals assets. It's like, they try to keep financial stability, but it feels like every decade they do something bigger. Instead of letting, the financial crisis in 2008, unless they let some banks fall apart, it was kind of haphazard how they picked them, but that really doesn't matter. They did it anyway. And, to remind people of risk. And then they spent the next decade propping stocks up. And I think not really letting the government spend a ton of money in monetizing that spending. And we're now kind of with the whole COVID thing, and, you could debate all you want about how the government responded to COVID and the rest. But no matter what, they did put a ton of money into the economy. They borrowed a ton, pumped it into the economy. The Fed has monetized quite a bit of that. And we're kind of stuck here with this high inflation like food and gas. Okay, part of it is being made worse by supply chain issues. So this is all exacerbated. And then this Russian invasion thing. But you're not seeing a huge response I think in the US from a production side. You can only make so much food. So you got a lot of this weird stuff going on, but one way or another, we've got an inflation number and it's been pretty steady. Now, my thought would be that it goes away. At some point, things kind of normalize. The Russians will, who knows? I don't think they're ever leaving the Ukraine, and all these sanctions have just made things a lot more confusing. I don't actually think it's kept the Russians from doing anything, to be quite honest. So, as long as the Europeans buy oil and gas from them, does it really matter? We're not going to buy it in 2 years. None of that makes any difference, I think. So you're kind of at this thing where we have a new CPI number, and the market has been unable to really do much this week. If you haven't, noticed, it's kind of just been back and forth, and there's no real catalyst. It's like it's looking for a reason to do something. And today the ECB says, they've got to raise rates because of inflation. The Europeans have been much more aggressively monetizing their debt issues, and with low interest rates or negative interest rates. So, and now they finally come out of their sleep that, we got to do something about this. We might have a problem. So to be honest, I don't know what that means for stock prices going forward. I think a lot of companies have come down to reasonable multiples. There's still a few, I would say, pretty expensive tech behemoths, but they are tech behemoths. So who knows how big they can grow. But you see a lot of stuff like Disney's down 50% from its highs. A lot of companies have got PayPal down 65%, 70% from its highs. Huge sell-offs. And just pick your companies across the board. So at this point, I think the market wants to see some end of QE. The algos love QE, where bad news is good news, but ultimately, it's not great. And I think the Fed has to dig itself out of this hole, or at least start. They have to make some sort of attempt here. And I think, we'll have another inflation number. Oil, anybody that's bought food or try to put gas in their car or try to pay rent for that matter, which is hard to believe. But, you had a year where we didn't build anything, maybe a year and a half where you had so much little building going on, at least 1 year. So all these forces are kind of, making things more difficult. But I think the market is waiting for a CPI number to make a move. And that's why we're not doing anything. So a lot of times when we've almost like waited for Apple to have great earnings or waited for tech to have great earnings, we're waiting for the CPI number to kind of confirm that the Fed is going to move forward with their rate raising regime. Now, I think the 10-year note's over 3% at this point. So rates are definitely starting to move up and adjust. Like it took them 3 months or 4 months for that to start happening. So I think at this point, stocks, or I think the broader market, needs to see some sort of continuity in the Fed staying on the path that they have started to make for themselves and not try to wiggle out of it. And ultimately, I think the market needs a little tough love at this point. So we'll see, right? Because, you have fiscal policy and the current administration want to spend a ton more money on stuff. And at this point, I think we got to the point where there just wasn't any more money to borrow or spend. And we'll see how that plays out. So I think that's kind of, that is where we are. We're waiting for a number. We're waiting for this number for a direction. And, it won't surprise me at all if we end the day where VIX is flat and SPX is dead flat and we don't go absolutely anywhere until the number comes out tomorrow. So that is my long-winded way of saying we're going to close the day unchanged.
Whole bunch of nothing, says the Rock Lobster here. Let's go back. Let's see if the markets are giving us a whole bunch of nothing here. Coming into this portion of the show, VIX just a little bit shy of 200,000 contracts, $195, which is kind of in keeping with the whole bunch of nothing, kind of keeping your powder dry narrative out there. A lot of people are waiting for that next shoe to drop, maybe coming tomorrow. Maybe some people thought what Gensler was laying down would move more than it did. The market's moving, but not a ton. ADV 565 right now in VIX, so that's kind of still hanging out where it's been for a little while out there. SPY looking kind of similar, 2.85 million. The ADV is a little bit shy of 7. It's actually come in a little bit, 6.93 now. So the S looking decent, but still a little bit light, not even half of its ADV there either. The S, same story, 986 on the tape. That's not bad for the S this time of day, but the ADV is north of 2 now, 2.12. So probably not going to make it there, but we shall see. The day is still young. Small caps, IWM, 202,000 contracts on the tape. The ADV 743 if you want a deeper dive into small caps and all things commodity vol, maybe nat gas, who knows what else is going to make it. Check out TWIFO coming up in a little bit over an hour from now. We'll be joined by the once future and indeed present Dr. Bix to break down all the vol in the world of commodities. And spoiler alert, there's a lot. So should be fun. Stay tuned for that in a little bit. All you live folks will get it right into your ear holes. All you on-demand folks have to wait till it hits the network. And the Qs, 1.15 million contracts right now. The ADV, nearly 2.7 million out there. Let's go out and see what kind of day we're having from a single name day. And the answer is not much of one, at least for the bottom half of the top 10 today. You get up to the top half, things are rocking and rolling a little bit more. Bottom half, not so much. We're kicking off the top 10. Only cost you 151,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today. That's about as light as we've pretty much ever seen it. That's like mid to late summer or maybe day before Christmas Eve kind of numbers. I mean, these are not exactly rock'em sock'em robots types of numbers. So everyone is kind of keeping their powder dry, kind of waiting and seeing. Number 10 gets us to a newcomer. Looks like the meme crowd rocking and rolling today. It is Imperial Petroleum, ticker symbol IMPP. This thing trading a whopping 83 cents. But it's good for 151,000 contracts today. My goodness, this thing has been rocking and rolling. It was trading 78 cents with the open, got up to almost $1, sold off again to 78 cents, right back up to almost about 83 cents. And this thing on the year, man, this thing has done some living. It got up to $7.50 on March 7th. It shot from, let's see, 49 cents on February 18th. By March 7th, $7.50. And then right back down to $1.50 on March 22nd. And then a long, slow death down back to about 38 cents, which was the low on May 25th. My goodness. And now it's back up to 83 cents. So yeah, the meme kids are having some fun with this one. This one can pop. It's popped a couple of times. We're trading $7.50 again back in December of last year too. So this one's firmly in the lottery ticket category. I have to look really quickly and just see what are the hot options on this thing, because this, hopefully the Viceroy is not listening, because he would be disgusted to see so many options trading on an 83-cent name. Yes, it's the one calls going out this month, June. 44, almost 45,000 of those bad boys have traded, followed by 26,000 of the Julys, and just for fun, 15,000 of the July halves and 14,000 of the June halves. Oh, someone's getting really optimistic. 11,000 of the June 1/2. So I'm going to hope that's a bit of a vertical, 1/1/2 vertical. Those ones look like they were trading for around a dime. Looks like, are they still there? Yeah, they're 9 cents at a dime. So there you go, listeners. What's your preferred lottery ticket? The 86-cent underlying, which is already maybe pretty juicy, or perhaps the dime calls going out in a few weeks. Pick your poison. Either way, we got some scratch-offs going in for number 10 here. Number 9, another interesting one. Kind of threw me for a second. I was like, what the hell is Meta? Then I was like, oh, wait, this is Facebook. They just changed their ticker. So yes, the name formerly known as Facebook, a.k.a. FB, is now Meta, M-E-T-A. So they're really doubling down on this, I think most people think, pretty crappy rebrand. I don't think anybody is out there. Even if you like the pivot to this new strategy, even if you like that, I don't think anybody likes the name Meta. It's pretty terrible. But $1.60 on the tape for the artist formerly known as Facebook. Number 8, man, it's a meme crowd today. Number 8, AMC. That just kind of shows you what kind of weird day we're having, listeners. The only ones playing are the apes. $1.88 on the tape for AMC. AMC $12.76, off $0.75, or about 5.5%. So not a good day for the apes. Number 7, NVIDIA. Actually kind of low for NVIDIA today. Only 228,000 contracts on the tape. Number 6, it's NEO. Day that ends in Y. NEO's hanging out there somewhere. NEO good for 278,000 contracts today. NEO off nearly $1.50, or right around 7%. A little bit shy of the 19 handle right now for NEO. And let's see, number 5, we got AMD. AMD also kind of low. Usually NVIDIA and AMD are kind of camped around the 3 and 4 spot, maybe 4 and 5 at the worst. But yeah, a little bit lower than today. And usually AMD is above. AMD today at number 5, 341,000 contracts. Number 4, BABA is all still right in the land of China. Let's find out. BABA, 546,000 contracts. BABA off nearly $8, or 6.6%, trading about 111.75 right now. So looks like maybe some of the bloom coming off that Chinese rose. Number 3, yes, I said number 3. It's the fruit company. So I guess everybody's doing the old buy the rumor, sell the fact after WWDC. Only 565,000 contracts on the tape for Apple. So that's pretty much a third of what it usually or can be doing at this time of day. So pretty light day for Apple. 146.10 is where Apple's hanging out right now, down nearly $2, about $1.80 or so. So not a huge mover, but something for Apple out there. And then we got number 2. Man, you could certainly say that the stock split, at least from a volume perspective, has been quite the boon for Amazon, because Amazon now back firmly in the top half of our top 10. Remember, listeners, in our top 10, we'd maybe talk about Amazon. Maybe it'd be number 8, maybe number 7, maybe if it was a crazy day, 6. But yeah, last time on Monday it was number 1, and now it's number 2, and with 841,000. So this has certainly reignited interest in trading in and around Amazon options. Again, 841,000 contracts on the tape right now. Amazon a little bit shy of 120, off about $1 and change. So yeah, people are liking it. If you folks, have you jumped into Amazon now that it's a little bit more approachable? Hit us up, let us know. And number 1 with a bullet today is Tesla, with exactly 1 million contracts, 1.00 million contracts. Tesla bucking the trend, up about 2%, or about 14.5 handles, to right around 740 right now. And again, good for exactly 1 million contracts, or almost double what Apple's putting up today. So kind of a weird day. The bottom half not doing much. The top half putting up some numbers, and all sorts of madness in the middle. Let's get on out to some of the earnings. Speaking of madness, we still have some popping off, even if the season proper, the way that ORAT's folks track, has mostly come to an end. We've got, we have Cracker Barrel tomorrow. So all of you out there looking for a little bit of the country food vol, they got you covered on Tuesday. Dave & Buster's as well. A difficult sector to have been in for the past couple of years. In-person, high-touch arcade gaming. Kind of challenging. Wednesday, Vera Bradley and Five Below. Uncle Mike calls it the premium store. When he wants to really spend up, get out of the dollar store, that's when he goes to Five Below. But not all the time. That's like a special occasion store for Uncle Mike. That's on Wednesday. Thursday, we have the aforementioned Neo. Let's see how much money they're shedding these days. Let's go out. Let's see. We do have... Actually, Neo was this morning, so we actually have numbers for them. Hot off the presses from our friends at ORATS. Right before the bell, we had Neo. They were, they were $20.38 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 8%, and they delivered 6.5% in the immediate post-earnings blush list. We just had them up. Let's see. Now they're off about 6.9%. So they're still underperforming that straddle out there. Are you a Neo trader? You know, it hits our top 10 every day. Kind of like AMD. People don't write in that often about Neo. So if you're a Neo trader, I'm curious. I want to hear from you. What are you up to out there? Hit us up. Let us know. Five Below, also yesterday after the bell, Uncle Mike's premium outlet. 135 and a third is where it went into its announcement. It was pricing in 7.5%. It delivered 4.9%. So a little bit of underperformance seems to be the order of the day out there. Let's also go out because why not? Let's just go to our old friend PagSeguro Digital, ticker symbol PAGS, a Brazilian fintech company. We talked about them before, listeners. Let's see. They were the 8th after the bell. They went into their announcement 17.20. They're pricing in 10.1%. They bucked the trend, listeners. They delivered a whopping 18.6%. They went out at $14. And they're actually trading $13.86 now, so they're off even more. So, wow, they're off nearly 20%. So, quite the move here for PagSeguro. So, it's not all underperformance. It's just mostly. And let's see. We still have some names coming up. Oracle next week, 13th after the bell. They're trading $71.40 as of this hot off the presses report. They're pricing in about $4.55. In the past, they moved $4.39. So, not a lot of extra juice going up out there. What else do we have coming up this coming week? DocuSign. This has been a hot one for a lot of you. Ticker symbol DOCU. They are today after the bell, so right after our show today. They're trading at right around $90 as of this report. They're pricing in $12.40. In the past, they've moved $13. So a little bit more juice, but not a ton. Not a ton. Just a little bit of a cherry on top there for DocuSign. This is kind of one of those ones everyone's been watching, kind of like your Zooms and others. You know, maybe, hopefully, we're transitioning to a post-pandemic era. What does that mean for some of these virtual names? Names like DocuSign will be the canary in the coal mine. Where do we stand now with kind of the final weeks tallied up here for the season? We're at an 83%, listeners. That actually turned out to not be that great. It seemed like it was going to be a banger of a season, and then not so much. The first week, 64%, not so good. Second week, 70%. Then we got off to it. We got up to over 100%, then it got revised down to about a 98%. So we don't have any week this cycle that actually broke the par level, broke the 100 level. Week 4, 82%, week 5, 87%, week 6, 81%, all averaging out to a somewhat dismal 83%, listeners. If you're wondering what trades are on, they still have a bunch actually that they're monitoring. They didn't enter any new ones today, but they are monitoring 92 long straddles, 41 short straddles, and 95 long calendars. If you want to see what names those are on, where did they enter, where do they exit, you want to see all about that kind of good stuff and a whole bunch more, theoptionsinsider.com is the place to go. Click on the Options News and Articles tab to begin your journey to the dark side. Meanwhile, it's time for us to turn that way as well. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, we get dangerous. Maybe you can join us if you're feeling so inclined. Let's kick it off. Unleash the Eye of Sauron. You know, we didn't have enough of Brazilian financial services there with our earnings. So let's go back to that sector again. This might be a newcomer here. If it's not, we haven't talked about it in quite some time. This is Banco Bradesco SA, ticker symbol BBD, Brazilian financial services company out of Sao Paulo. And let's see, trading ticker symbol BBD right now. And this thing trading $3.96 right now. So compared to some of those names we talked about in our top 10, this is a very rich name. A year ago, it was trading a whopping $5. That was pretty much the high for the year, right around the June 8th timeframe, listeners. I'm just saying, let's putting it out there. Got as high as $5.16, and then it kind of never really looked back. Sold off in December down to $2.95. December 21st looks like that was the low for the year. Then it rebounded again by April 1st, back up to about $4.25. Got up there again in May, and then now it's kind of trending lower again, back to about the 4 handle out here. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron has found for this Brazilian financial services name. This is the third largest bank in Latin America, third largest in Brazil, and the 79th largest bank in the world, if you were so inclined, listeners. All right, our Eye of Sauron found some NOV 4 puts, so pretty much at the money puts, going up 10,000 times for 45 cents this morning. And get this, Mr. Rock Lobster, this was one of those super fun markets. The markets on these puts when they came out were a dime bid at 65 cents. So the market makers were like, yeah, screw you, go away. We don't want to trade this thing. They traded it anyway. They crossed it, though. They had to cross it to find the other side of this because nobody, I don't think, wanted to put this up. They put them up for 45 cents. So they didn't quite split the uprights, but they got pretty darn close. So 45 cents when the stock was pretty much exactly right here, $3.94. And then about 6 minutes later, we saw another block of 5,000 go up. So a total of 15,000 on the day, also for 45 cents. This time, they actually managed to improve the market. After they saw 10,000 go up, they had a sense of some price discovery. So they said, okay, we're going to come out for these 35-cent bid at 60. And which was a nickel below. The stock was still pretty much, let's see, where was the stock at the time? Stock was a couple of cents lower, but not much. So they were nickel below on the offer, and they were obviously 25 cents higher on their bid. So a little bit tighter market. So 35 cents at 60. They put them up again for 45 cents, 5,000 times. So a dime off the bid or 15 cents off the offer. View it how you like. So we have quite the put palooza going up here in BBD. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, by the way, their next earnings are on August 4th. So this is going to include some earnings premium in here. Mr. Rock Lobster, we have to ask ourselves. This is the name that's bounced around from about a little north of $5 to a little bit shy of $3 over the span of the last year. Someone came in and crossed about 15,000 of these puts close to mid-market. So it's up to us, sir. We have to determine, what do you think they were up to? You think they're spooked? And so they're paying 45 cents, which is over 10% of the value of the stock at this point, to hedge through November? Or do you think they were putting their big boy pants on and selling some at the money puts and saying, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, I want the stock at 4 minus my 45 cents?
Well, these are all big questions.
Yes, they are. That's what we're here for. So we're here to tackle the big topics of the day.
We are definitely tackling the big topics. I'm looking, actually, let's see here. Vol. No. I'm looking at another display. There we go. Yeah, I'm of the mind. Wow, I'll tell you what, though, it didn't take the person very long to bid 45 cents for these again. They're still 45-cent bid. So, this is a head. So I would say this. It's dead in the middle. If you're selling these puts, right, and I know that the Brazilian ETF just paid a $1 something dividend today, like a $1.45 dividend, went XD today. I'm of the mind that this was a person selling these puts to try to make a couple of bucks. That's how I would categorize these Bank of Bradesco puts. So, the low of the year is, $3.50, something like that. I got down to $3. So I'm thinking though that's what they're doing, but I could be totally wrong, but I think that's what they're doing. I think this is just a sell some puts, try to make some money and see where it all goes.
Well, they certainly have managed to tighten up this market. They're now 45-cent bid for 4,300, and there's 4,300 offered at 50 cents. So it's kind of a pick 'em now. It's gone from a dime bid at 65 cents to pick 'em, however many you want, 45 cents at 50. Wow. Interesting. Right. I think we got some diversity of opinion here on the four puts, which is kind of fun. We got both sides. You want to buy them for 50, you want to sell them for 45. You could do both, listeners, right now for size. So where would you rather be on these puts? Would you rather be selling these things? I mean, the stock has gotten down to a little bit shy of $3, so you could be worrying it a little bit. But on the flip side, do you want to pay over 10% of the value of the stock to hedge it through November? These are the questions you must wrestle with in your own trading account. We're going to come back to these. Hopefully before November, we'll have a sense of how these are working out. Yeah, I probably would lean towards the seller, but obviously there's paper on both sides here. So people obviously are expressing both opinions, which makes it fun. That's what makes a market, right, listeners, at the end of the day. And now if you're saying to yourself, I need myself a little bit more Brazil. You can't ever really have enough of the Brazilian financial services sector. Our Eye of Sauron heard you today because they're going out to an old favorite, one of my favorite tickers, ITUB. This is Itaú Unibanco Holdings SA, another ADR out of Brazil, another Brazilian financial services company, also headquartered out of Sao Paulo and trading right now $5.04. Ticker, of course, ITUB, ITUB. Let's see. On the year, we haven't checked in with our old buddy ITUB in a little bit. A year ago, $5.38. That was actually on June 9th, because, of course, it is the 9th, so our frame of reference doesn't go back that far. And then we have to go out to the high. Well, first off, it sold off to the low of 360 on December 21st. So ironically, the same day as our last name. So obviously some pressure for Brazil financial services sector around December of this year. And then rallying all the way back up to the high for the year, this time not on June 8th, but on April 4th, $6.76. And then it sold off again on May 9th to $4.50, and then rallied again to $5.50 on May 31st. So in the last couple of months, this thing has been swinging by dollars. So a little bit of vol. And then since May 31st, it has sold off again about $0.50 from about $5.50 down to about $5 where it is right now. So a lot of movement in ITUB over the last couple of months. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found. Somebody's going out to December this time. By the way, it looks like we have all puts. Once again, all puts, a trifecta of puts in our odd block today, which, again, people have been writing in about this. The meme stock thing, is it dead? Clearly not dead. Look at the ape stocks going up today. But in terms of options action, what we're seeing, you got to look farther and farther to find the size call action out there. Puts all the time. In this case, ITUB, we've got the DEES, 5 puts going up for 60 cents, 5,000 times. Another crappy market, by the way. This was 51 cents at 83. So those are some levels. That's a 45 vol. The stock was pretty much right here when it went up, $5.03. Obviously, there's earnings between now and December. The next announcement for ITUB is on August 8th. We got another person, Mr. Rock Lobster, not quite splitting the uprights like our last one. This one was closer to the bids. I think it's pretty reasonable to assume they probably sold these 5,000 of these for 60 cents. The stock is $5 going out to December. Mr. Rock Lobster, what say you?
Well, this is sounding like a similar, kind of sounding like a similar gig, isn't it? To our Bank of Bradesco.
It does have some notes that are resonant, sir.
I mean, we've been profiling these Brazilian banks for 7 years, 10 years. I don't know how long we've been doing it, but I know almost because the ITUB is one of your favorite symbols. mostly because I know how much you like to
does
sing.
Bring a smile to my face every time, sir.
It does. It does. And I'm looking at a 10-year chart. And, 10 years ago, the stock was $16. So I'm just thinking to myself that this must be one of the worst investments ever. Let's see, what's the divvy now? It's like some micro divvy. Yes. It pays less than a penny a share, 3/100ths of a dollar, 3/1000ths of a dollar. So I don't think you can make it up in dividends. But I guess, such as investing in Brazilian banks. So I guess the only way to do it is you just sell puts when the stocks are at zero is the only thing I can think of. So once again, I think it's a put sale. It feels like maybe the bottom is in somewhat, and you keep moving on. So that's all I can say on that score.
Once again, the customers stepping in with the market maker's spirit to tread because they have discovered the price now. These things are now 57 cents at 62. So you put up 5,000 or something, and amazing how that focuses the mind, Mr. Rock Lobster. They're no longer 51 at 83. So now you can trade all you want, 57 cents at 62, listeners. So yeah, all it takes is a few thousand to go up to focus the mind and give you an actual real market out there. What would you rather do, listeners? Sell them 57, buy them for 62. What is your market on these ITUB puts? We think they probably sold these. That looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's probably a duck. But what are your thoughts on these? And let's go out to one more, the third leg of our put trifecta tonight. This, I believe, is a newcomer. This is Patterson UTI Energy Inc., ticker symbol PTEN, PTEN. This is a land drilling and pressure pumping services company. They are trading right now $19.26, off about half a buck or about 2.5% today. On the year, they've had pretty much mostly an upward trajectory. A year ago, they were trading $10.37, so almost exactly $9 below where they're trading right now. They dipped down to their nadir on August 19th, $6.44. They revisited that level almost right around the $7 range or so on December 1st. But then ever since December 1st, it's been pretty much straight up. They got up to $14 on February 17th. They got up to $18.50 on April 20th. Gave some of that back quickly on May 12th, back to $14.30. And then shot up from there from May 12th, went from $14.30 all the way up to about $20.50 on May 27th. That was their high for the year. They floated around there for a little bit before selling off where they are right now, $19.25. What did our Eye of Sauron find? Once again, back to the puts. This time not playing with as much fire, listeners. We got the July 15 puts. Everybody else was kind of going straight at the money. And this guy or gal decided, I'm going to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. They came in with 4,700, so similar size of the P10 July 15 put. So not going as far out either, not going out to December and November, just going out to July. And they went about $4.25 out of the money. 21 cents these traded for, nearly 5,000 times. The market, 15 cents at 30. Don't have to be a scientist to figure out they probably sold these bad boys. This is about a 63 vol. The stock was a little lower when they trade these. The stock was $18.93. So they sold these puts when the market was looking a little bit worse for P10. It has rallied a little bit since there. The next earnings they're going to miss it. They're in July, but they're going to miss it. The earnings are on July 28th. So this is not an earnings line in the sand. This looks like Mr. Rock Lobster, kind of an old school, harvesting the old 21 cents, 4,700 times. And if they pick up the stock at $15, I'm not going to say they're not worried about it because the stock has spent a good chunk of last year well below 15. In fact, the low was 644. So they could be wearing it on the 15 strike, but it's also not a straight at the money, super aggressive put right. What say you, sir?
Well, how many of these is today the day? Is today the put right day?
Today is the day, sir. All the puts, all the time.
This is just today is the put right day. This is a stock we follow in Option Pit, one of the many big flow names. So this is another one I would guess all the paper's been leaning super long. So I'm again, I look at this and I say somebody's writing some puts, kind of line in the sand desk puts on this one, because I think the stock's trading Patterson Energy is like what, $21 or $19, $20. So I think they're writing puts, and they're gonna ride this oil boom forever.
Well, we won't ride the odd block forever, listeners. It is time to unleash you folks. It is time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mail block, the portion of the show where you guys take the reins, your questions, your comments, your pearls of wisdom. Let's get out to the latter half here of our question of the week. We asked you at the beginning of the week. SIBO making a lot of headlines, launching a new open outcry floor. So our question this week, a very simple one. Does open outcry still have a place in the modern options market, or is it an outdated relic of the past? Yes, it's still important. No, electronic or bust. Or what the heck is open outcry? Mr. Uncle Mike, you've had a week to mull it over, or close to that at least, a few days. What are your thoughts on our poll? And then what do you think our audience is voting for?
I mean, I think the audience understands that there is a need for it. The way that Marty Kearney from the CBOE explained it to me one time when I was brand new in the business, I said, well, why don't we just all go 100% electronic? And the way that he explained it to me was that, let's say that you're a floor trader, or let's say that you're a large fund, or you just got a lot of money, whatever way you want to put it, and you need to get filled on a certain option. Well, if you put that order out there for everybody to see, it's going to affect the market, it's going to affect volatility and that type of thing. Whereas if you have a floor broker, you can call the order in, and the floor broker can kind of talk around, negotiate it, see where things are at, and then it can make it a more orderly market. So I think for situations like that, it makes sense to have it, and there's a need for it. So I think that's the area with which it can be needed, and I think the audience agrees with me.
Interesting, Mr. Rock Lobster, sir. What is your vote? What do you think our audience is voting for?
I agree with Mike. I think because people upstairs want to be able to call in and get a market. Because I remember the old days. You call into like NASDAQ over the counter. There was Instanet. This was before like Island was in its infancy. And you would call into you'd call into the NASDAQ, and they wouldn't pick up the phone. So I think they still like having somebody to answer the phone and a central marketplace. So I think there will always be a place for it. So I'm going to say the public, though, has no clue what it is. So I'm going to go with, I think it's important. However, I'm going to say that all these millennial newbies are going to say electronic or bust. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, throwing some shade at the millennial newbies, are we? Says the old man from Maine. Get off my lawn, kids. Let's see what our audience is saying out there. All right. And I just had it up. What did I do with it? All right. There it is. We have right now 43.9% saying, yes, it's still important. So the hardcore old schoolers in our audience, Mr. Rothbard, we have a lot of pros floating around in our audience, especially on Twitter. They're saying, yes, it's still important. They see the value of that high-touch execution for big, complex trades like the SPX and the VIX, where someone wants to call in. They want to have someone babysit that order. They want to have multiple legs. It's still, just think about it, listeners. Calling up somebody, tell them what you want versus typing it all in. By the time you type it all in, the market's moved, especially for some of these multi-leg things. And they quote a lot of multi-leg stuff in the SPX. So they want it for picks like that. It does make a certain amount of sense. For your 10 lots of AMC calls, probably not. But for, your multi-thousand lots of, 1x4 by 2.5, ratio iron fly swaps someone's quoting in multiple months simultaneously. And yes, you probably want someone to be on the other side of that for you and work it a little bit. No electronic or bust, 34.1%. And what's open outcry? Here's your ape kids, Mr. Rock Lobster. 22% saying, what's open outcry? So that closely lines up with the nearly 30% of people when we did our poll a few months back that said they've started options trading in the last 3 months. I would imagine those people are probably a good portion of the What's Open Outcry crowd out there. Let's go out to some of our other questions. Here's a good one from Mads. Mads wants to know, so VVIX is historically low right now. What do I do with that? I like that, Mads. I like the way you put that. Very succinct, very to the point. But, Mr. Meatball, or I apologize, Mr. Rock Lobster, we have been beating this drum for a while. I've been beating this drum for a while. VVIX at historically significant levels, at least looking over the past couple of years. Within the pandemic, we were elevated north of 100, north of triple digits. We've only broken through it a couple of times in the last couple of years until now, where we've broken through it, and we've hung out through it for the better part of a couple of weeks now. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, Mads is confused. He wants to know why I'm beating that drum. What does he do with that knowledge?
Well, you blame the Fed first off because they've screwed the whole market up by just constantly interfering with the price mechanism. So we're going to blame them. Always
first. Blame the Fed. Hashtag blame the Fed.
Blame the Fed. The second is I think, the vol, where is the vol? I think it's not, in this case, it's really not in the options, but it's floating into the futures and the back month SPX. So, because, VIX and the VIX futures are forward volatility curve. And, you've got, the market is not, there is not a bid over like 24 vol for the short-term options, but that's not the case in the back month. So just by good old-fashioned statistics and math, you have that downward sloping curve. And I think the vol is in the back month. It's not in the front. And that is a relatively high level still historically. Like that part of the curve is still, I think, it's expensive. It usually isn't that high. And there is, if you think about it too, the second part is because VIX is so high, there is very little thought that we get to a zone 2 or 1, like meaning the bottom half of the volatility quartile, the bottom 2 quartiles of vol. So like right now, the market's like, okay, the VIX, the 24 straddle is, or the 20, I think the futures at 27. So that 27 straddle is like $6.50 for a month. So we ain't getting below 20 and we ain't getting above 33, which was, I guess, close to the old highs. And the market will just keep orbiting around in that phase. So, the traders, they are going to price where they think the market is and where the liquidity is kind of pushing things. And right now they're just, because VIX is already in zone 4, right? It's already in the top quartile of vol. And there is very little appetite for relatively low VIX, and there is not more than normal appetite for VIX over 33, 34. So that gives us the pricing that we have right now. So I think it's just a reflection of, like most vol, it's just a reflection of what the market thinks is going to happen. And it's odd just to see so little action in VIX when it's this high, which has been my observation. We've talked about it a couple of times. It's like, it's odd to see VIX at 24 and just stay up here forever and not do anything. We haven't seen that for I'm trying to remember the last time I've seen it. And I don't think I've ever seen VVIX this low with so little, fat tail, so to speak, either down or up when we're at a 24. Because normally, we spike up and then things get normal again. So that is not what the market is thinking currently.
But we all are thinking it's time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, let's do it. Let's go around the block, tell you what we're watching until the next time we can gather here together for this program. On Monday, Mr. Uncle Mike, let us start with you. A lot to keep an eye on. Big numbers coming out tomorrow. We got Gensler making some waves with some big market overhaul proposals today. A lot of stuff hitting the fan. What are you keeping an eye on until our next episode on Monday, sir?
The numbers tomorrow. I think we're going to get some movement tomorrow during the day. So just seeing what's going on with everything at that. Wanting to see if we can hold or close above the 4,100 level tomorrow. I'm not overly concerned about today, but I think tomorrow is going to be an important day because 4,100 is now the new big number on the S&P that we're close to. So seeing if we can hold the 4,100 level tomorrow, even though we're not holding it right now. And that's what I'm watching.
Uncle Mike, we had a guest on our Pro Q&A this week who was talking about accumulating cash and not liking these levels in the S&P and not buying back in until we're well lower. I was thinking about you, sir. I think you'd have been sorely offended by this guest's viewpoint. So I'm just saying, let's putting it up.
I'm never offended by anybody except Bitcoin bulls.
Oh, yes. Bitcoin does suck, according to Uncle Mike. Let's go out to the land of the rock lobster where he's always offended by everything. He's get off my lawn. He's that guy. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until we can gather here together on this show on Monday?
It would be more like get out of the trees. Get out of my trees. Although we do have some grass here.
Stop stealing my clams, you clam pirates. That's what you get.
Yeah. Good luck stopping those guys. I think they're all carrying in their boats, just in case somebody came to steal.
Packing heat in Maine. That's the way you do it, baby.
Yeah. I think we're not doing anything. I think the CPI will give us some kind of clue. If we can get out of this hellscape of Fed intervention, I think it would be great, and just let the market float on its own and make the government stop spending money we don't have. And I guess, the only way we're going to do that is get rid of every politician in Washington. So it is all fanciful, but they're going to be here till who knows when. So anyway, it's all the CPI number, and hopefully we'll get some kind of direction either up or down from there.
This hellscape of Fed intervention, says the Rock Lobster. Spoken like a true Maine libertarian. Unfortunately, listeners, that music means we're done with the hellscape known as the option block. But if you want a little more in your lives, don't worry, we got you covered. We'll be back in a little bit now with the once and future Dr. Bix to explore the hellscape that is commodity volatility. A whole bunch of it out there, and a whole bunch more. Some equities, a whole bunch of other. You got Dr. Bix on. I'm going to talk some equity vol as well. So if you're listening live, that'll be in your ear holes post haste. Listening after the fact, you have to wait until it hits the network, then hit next on your device of choice to head on over to the old TWIFO episode. Before we go, let's go back around the horn. Mr. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you, sir. If folks want to reach out to you to debate your stance on Bitcoin or where they should be buying the S&P right now, where should they go? What should they do?
Feel free to reach out to me. You can you can go to my website, stcharleswealth.com. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, TOSAW, or check out my YouTube channel. I try to put out a lot of content there. Just type in St. Charles Wealth Management.
He's a content machine. You should see him on the TikTok, listeners. Those dances, those Uncle Mike dance moves, impressive. But begin your journey, stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. Or bitcoinsucks.com, whichever one you prefer. Let's head on out to the land of the pit. Mr. Rock Lobster, what do you guys have in store for them there?
What do we got? Remember 888-TRADE-01? You can buy any of my awesome products that will teach you how to trade and teach you how to make money at the same time. You go 888-TRADE-01, just say Ted. Andrew is the most handsome man in options, and you get 10% off anything you buy.
There you go, optionpits.com. And I have just learned by Uncle Mike, I have an amendment. You want to go to bitcoinreallysucks.com. That's where you can get at Uncle Mike. Bitcoinsucks.com. Somebody else. Don't go there. But bitcoinreallysucks.com. That's where you can get at Uncle Mike. Bitcoin sucks. They wanted $15,000. That's a lot. That's a lot. Maybe when Bitcoin gets lower, then you could debate if it gets to that level. Is it worth it? One Bitcoin or bitcoinsucks.com? Which would you rather have? Right now, though, go to bitcoinreallysucks.com or stcharleswealth.com. We're going to get on out of here. Back again in a little bit for TWIFO. Back again tomorrow for Volatility Views for all you cool kids. After that in the Secret Club for Options Oddities. Then back again on Monday, another episode of The Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or Search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.